No! We need ideas how to stop the terrorists. An 18-wheeler spins out of control, and it's all like, brush! In this huge tanker full of diamonds, crawl, crawl! Those aren't ideas, those are special effects. I don't understand the difference.
Hello and yay to a new episode of Shittywebcomics Weekly. As usual, these episodes are brought to you by our Subscribe Star backers. The Subscribe Stars linked below, where you can support us and get access to all of our secret videos that you can't watch anywhere else. And if you want to suggest a webcomic or ask a question, check out our Curious Cat, which is also linked below, or usually is, anyways. I don't even remember if it's in the links because I don't care.
I don't even have an opinion.
Doesn't matter too much, but today we have another special episode where it's part of the double header of Mike S. Miller's Lonestar comics. But before that, more importantly, is Sinfest, where, especially today, we got linked to this like 10 minutes ago. Because we were like, oh, let's do an episode. Let's get the Lonestar 2 over with really quick. Just get it the fuck over with.
I want it out of my life.
Yes. Get out of my life.
It's like Tank.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
I want him to stop ruining everything.
And he's singing the Michael Jackson song, She's Out of My Life, but it's about us. Anyways. And that reminds me, Tank did an actual new, like, chapter 1, not a redo, because the previous one was chapter 0, of that Risk Hunter comic, not Risk Hunter K anymore. And I have that written down, so we plan to do that as a future episode of the weekly. We want to make sure we're not running out of comics to even mention. Unlike the original Shitty Webcomics blog, where we talked about comics for a good several months. Consistently, and then we just start talking about anything else. And it's like, all this is related. It's all about the cultural zeitgeist.
I'm tired of comics.
Yes. I'm tired of these comics and being caught.
They're so tired. I'm just tired of all these comics.
It's sort of like Star Wars. Just tired of all
Very
the Star
much
Wars.
like Star Wars, in the sense that I am tired of it.
Anyways, but yeah, we're for the Shitty Webcomics Weekly, we'll probably actually only be talking about webcomics, or at least we'll be sticking to it, which is important. That's a good thing.
I definitely would much rather just cover comics than cover. I would much rather cover webcomics than cover indie. Fucking
like print comics, indie, crowdfunded comics, that kind of shit. And we're going to show why those aren't worth covering when we do that. But the first thing is, again, this is today's Sinfest, and just got linked to it. It's like some guy in coat and hat saying, "Hey, pissed, we're going to storm this place, free our patriot brothers, then blow it up to Kingdom Come UN," and he's wearing MAGA, Trump hat, cube, Smug Pepe, the actual Smug Pepe, and the chick who I assume isn't a fucking old character. I assume it's some new character that's still indistinguishable from all the other characters, except for the fact that she has a hat and she carries a gun everywhere.
Her clothing and hair, in other words,
and a piece of straw in her mouth. But she goes, "How stupid do you think I am, glowy?" Which I'm not even sure Tetsuya notices or is aware of the source of that reference. Glowy has become a sort of work safe, social media safe way of saying glow in the dark CIA N-word. Which of course I can't even say the N-word. Because not just on YouTube, but even if this was an unlisted video, as we found out, YouTube actually scans our unlisted videos. We're so beyond the next level of being shadow banned that YouTube scans our unlisted videos that nobody else has ever seen. and is able to do sort of text detection or speech detection, where it actually analyzes our speech. And they got the AI going full time on it. And I wouldn't have believed this for even 1 second, but an unlisted video of ours with no views actually got hit for hate speech. And we even appealed it, and the appeal was thrown out and the video was deleted.
Who have this problem too? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't think
Masterson.
Yeah, we're definitely like in the top 10 apparently for some reason, because we have pretty much no followers and no subscribers, but we've been around long enough and have been false flagged so many times. I think Tank actually did it himself once for fun back in the original days, or somebody did it just because we did a video with like a fucking gay F slur in the title. And so somebody flagged it and the video actually got pulled just without even... That was back when they didn't have appeals at all either. So that's how far back we go. But anyways, so that's why we can't just actually say glow-in-the-dark N-word. But that's where the source comes from, is Terry A. Davis would say that CIA agents would glow in the dark, and he would call them glow-in-the-dark CIA N-words, and say that you run them over with your car, and you know they glow in the dark when you fucking hit them with your headlights or some shit like that. And so, you know, the on Paul and all that stuff, that took off as a description for like secret federal agents trying to instigate you,
which they are,
into incriminating yourself.
They managed to like basically gather evidence of exactly that.
Well, yeah, they didn't even gather evidence. Like, it came out that the FBI has a long history of like every domestic supposed terrorist incident was usually instigated by FBI agents, and usually in many cases carried out by FBI agents or undercover agents of some kind, who either instigated it or were there to watch it as it happened, so that they could be like, you see, there's this, it's going on. Whereas, and there's actually several other recent incidents where I think like state police and FBI all undercover with some domestic terrorist group all accidentally ended up trying to arrest each other, finding out that there actually weren't any domestic terrorists in the group who had any intent at all. It was all just themselves and each other planning to do some kind of shooting or explosion or something. They're like, oh, we got you. And it turns out all of them were cops. All of them were feds. So, and again, more and more of that's just coming out constantly. And just like the attempted accusation of the January 6th insurrection, turns out that, you know, federal agents and government employees were just opening the doors and holding them open for the supposed insurrectionist rioters and shit.
And like only one cop was killed. Everyone else who was killed was basically part of the protest.
Well, one cop was killed like 50 miles away from a heart attack or some shit like that, or something goofy.
Yeah. They blamed the fucking protesters.
Anyways, yeah, so Glowy, I just thought was funny because it's like, well, why don't you just go all, I mean, hey, it's your comic. Why not just call him a glow-in-the-dark CIA N-word? It's your comic, so you can drop the N-bomb. It's not like you're on social media.
But that would actually be too spicy.
Yeah. Even though that's the implication here. That's full on the implication, and you know Tatsuya doesn't. He's not going to go that far. Because then what you can do be like Stone Toss, who he probably reads at this point.
Or acts like it anyway.
Yeah, and some people suggested that Tatsuya does read Kiwi Farms. It was also speculated that he listens to our videos. Now, I don't know if he does. He shouldn't. I don't think he should. If it was me, I wouldn't. I don't fucking.
He
not gonna
knows
pay
what's
attention.
good for him.
Yeah, that's the thing is, if it was me, when it comes to other people like trying to criticize, I notice all the critical, the supposed criticism of any of our comics or any of our stuff is like, "Ew, it's stupid." It's like that's you're just mad.
It's cope.
Yeah, it's cope. Whereas with us, we actually pick apart the specific things, and we're in fact, even with a comic that we may not like, we'll be like, "Oh, this part's good." We always mention if the art's decent enough, but I mean, there can always be a problem with art that you can find. Um,
You know how I feel about the art. I'm not impressed.
yeah, the singing and the dancing, I ain't impressed, motherfucker. Anyways, so speaking of unimpressive art, though, I guess we should go on to Lonestar 2 specifically, Soul of the Soldier, something that Mike S. Miller doesn't know anything about. I
Maybe
do
if it
like
was
the
called
top
Soul of
half
the
of this
Coward.
cover.
Maybe if it was called Soul of the Coward or
Yeah, soul of a
pathetic
big,
loser,
a whiny
Soul
bitch.
of the failure.
Soul of a person who fucking cries victimization and that kind of shit. I'm really hoping that this review will be shorter because we got a lot out. We went through a lot of the context.
I have a feeling it will be shorter because let's face it, I mean, what else is there to say? Once you say one thing about these people's comics, there's nothing else left.
Yeah, and we've done that. We've dug through it. When we did the first Lone Star comic, we basically said everything that needs to be said, and then we reviewed Monster Hunt, which was his other comic that came out slightly more recently. I think last year. I'm not even sure, but when we reviewed Monster Hunt, it really was just the exact same comments, down to the same mistakes. Where within the third page of the comic, there was a giant, hilarious continuity flaw that not a single person in Comicsgate ever caught. Nobody caught it until us. It took until us, which goes to show you really need us. If fucking Comicsgate needs us more than they need anyone else, kick everyone else out of the movement, replace all of them with just us. You will instantly have a better movement with fucking legitimate integrity and actual taste. Because these people in Comicsgate were like, "Oh, we want better comics." The pack-led excuse.
Yeah.
It was we want comics to be better, and then they donate to comics like this that don't even have writing in them. They have giant, hilarious continuity flaws that are easily caught. Barely even paying attention, we caught the last one, and then again, we wanted to see if we would go 3 for 3. Maybe we won't notice it. Maybe there isn't one within the first 3 pages. Maybe not even within the first 10 pages. But the first two in Lone Star and Monster Hunt, we just easily noticed these bizarre continuity flaws that should go to show that's what happens when you have a comic written by somebody who can't write, who's not a writer. And Comicsgate doesn't demand better.
He's not trying to make a story.
Yeah.
He just wants a product.
And also really sad.
IP.
I do like the top half of this cover because it's just everyone looking down all sad. And it's like, yeah, that's a pretty good sum up of these comics so far. Just everyone looks depressed and moping. And then the guy on the left here absolutely is Mike S. Miller's self-insert character, which is really really gay. Moss gay. I believe Sammy Hagar would call it. Anyways, scrolling down though, oh no, his hands are bleeding or something. Who cares?
Who cares? Besides, man, who the fuck cares?
Who the fuck cares? And then scrolling down, some kind of indie inner cover, crowdfunded on Indiegogo Inc. Why not Kickstarter? Oh yeah, that's right, because you pulled your comic off Kickstarter and acted like you got censored falsely. And then it's fucking rip off of Captain America versus Antifa or something. Yeah, so much for non-political comics. Here's yet another fucking variant cover because Comicsgate Comics, just like the American comics industry, are all about buying a cover, not buying a comic, which is proven true already.
It's just a great example of how they don't have any ideas. What's going to be the first, second, and third page for your comic? Just do another cover.
Yeah, just
That's
more
not an idea.
covers, more covers.
There's no story to be told in doing that.
Yeah, and again, indeed, it's just visuals. And in fact, here's a one by Ethan. Strangely enough, gee, how fucking how'd that work out for you? But also this Ethan cover, very weird, awkward. Again, it does that thing where the two goggles are uneven, because I think, as we pointed out in the first Lonestar issue, is that the goggle lenses are differently shaped, apparently on accident, and he just went with that. He sent that out to people and being like, "That this is Lonestar. That's how he looks," and so Ethan drew it that way.
Designed. That's my design now.
He has weird butthole lips in this version. The neck is kind of off and odd. Yeah, this one is just kind of weird looking. It's very wonky art, very odd, weird. It looks like art drawn by a weirdo. You can even see it, like it shows up even better how weird and wonky it is in the black and white version there. But again, it's not really interesting or relevant enough. And just in case, you can't give credit or pass off the buck, Mike S. Miller says that he wrote this, so you can't blame anyone else. Going to the first, and again, we've never read any of this, so we're just live reading this right now. We're experiencing this all live. So the thing is that it's hard to even scroll through this and realize if there's anything to say. But here's Dracula, and then
hard
bites,
to stomach.
and then fucking he's watching a movie, and again, right now, instantly, I'm checked out, because like if I wanted to watch a Dracula movie, I could go watch it. The thing is, most people don't watch them because they're very aged. They're not classics really anymore. They're just kind of old schlock movies that were made just to be old schlock movies, and they're fine and all, but just not what Bela Lugosi looks like.
I'd rather watch those than this comic.
Especially because it's in the public domain. Which is another reason why they tend to put these characters in. That was one of Richard's supposedly brilliant ideas. Of course, we've seen now, Richard. Well, not we've seen, we've known since the beginning that Richard's an abject moron. But a lot of other people realized what we were saying from the very beginning, is that Richard's ideas were all stupid and none of them worked, and now even his comics don't work. But one of his early ideas was to put in public domain characters just because you can. And I'm like, why not just use original characters? But we see, as we pointed out with every previous review of these comics, even the original characters are ripoffs. Like, this is just Captain America. He's wearing his Captain America helmet and jacket everywhere. And yeah, it's like vampires used to have class. They don't make them like they used to, which... What exactly is the point supposed to be about that?
I guess he's so upset that the Twilight movies... Do you remember the Twilight movies?
I don't know, because the vampires are supposed to be real, and weren't they the bad guys in the previous thing? And again, the previous comic ended with just a really lame cliffhanger of like, vampire... Antifa vampires or some shit like that. It's like... vampires are going to take over Antifa. And it's like, okay, whatever.
I guess we're supposed to like vampires too, even though they're basically agents of Satan.
Yeah, are vampires supposed to be cool? Are the old classic vampires cool, where it's like, they would bite people? Is that good? I don't know. So anyways, movie, and then guys are sitting around talking, So, how many pages? It's like page 16 out of 60. I don't even know if we'll get to fucking page 20. Because so far, nothing's happening. People are just sitting around talking about just blather. It's nothing that really has anything to do with the story the overall plot, the threat. You're supposed to have the threat established. The threat wasn't even really established in all of the first comic. And so it wasn't even really worth reading to the end. But I read it to the end just to fucking make sure. Because they always say, well, you didn't read the whole comic. So I read the whole comic, and every prejudice I had was completely correct and verified. So I knew going in that this comic would also suck. And again, it's just, we're just watching people sit around doing things and blathering. And, oh, she slaps him. And then, oh, they're happy, though. And then, oh, his spidey sense, so he jumps over a thing. And it's also pointing to a lot of that really pathetic, like, we're going to make superheroes again. And it's like, okay, are you going to make them interesting, though? No. They're just going to do the most cliched, basic, like, a superhero is going to be a superhero and go find bad guy and punch bad guy. And it's like, that's been done to death already. There's a reason why superhero comics aren't doing the usual old superhero thing, is because they stopped selling. People got tired of them. People went on to something else. As Dave Sims said, you're competing for mindless mayhem, the mindless mayhem dollar, with video games. And video games are then going to eat your lunch.
Better.
Yeah, the video games do it better. And when it comes to this, it's like nobody cares about the same old generic. This is this exact same setup here. I'm fucking at page like 19. This is the exact same situation that the first Lonestar started off with. It was like Mexican gangs, and they're holding a girl hostage. I guess Mexican gangs just go around holding guns to girls' heads, just all the time.
Not doing anything else, just guns to girls' heads.
At the end of an alley. And it's like, again, usually there has to be some kind of story, even if it's not told. This is something that apparently no American comic book writer understands, especially fans of superhero comics. They have no understanding that if a guy has a girl and he's holding a gun to her head and he's at the end of an alley, there is an entire story of how they got there. You don't have to tell it, but there does have to be a story, even if just in your head.
Why. You have to have considered this as a writer.
Yeah, just consider why. And it's just literally they teleported out of the Immaterium so that action part, so that basically the hero can be a hero. And people are tired. People are tired of a hero being a hero with no context. A real, actual hero does something heroic and brave for a specific reason. They're usually the most heroic heroes are people who are not facing down gang members with guns. They're facing down like pathological lying cultists who are enforcing a false narrative and lying constantly. Basically, a hero is anyone who has criticized Mike S. Miller without belonging to their own cult. So really, Mike S. Miller is more like the Mexican gangster in this comic than anything like a hero in real life, according to his own standards. Now, I'm not holding him to my standards. I'm holding him to his own. But again, there's all this crap where in comics games, like, heroes aren't heroes anymore. And it's like, yeah, that's because you don't even know what a hero actually is. They have this incredibly shallow idea of hero is guy who punches bad guy and he wears a costume. They have a childish view of reality.
Is a guy who has superpowers that he didn't earn.
Yeah. And in fact, his superpowers are not explained. The first comic never explained them. And this comic, again, we're just jumping into another repeat of the first comic. So it's not explaining them here either. And the exact same thing happens where it's just very static, still images. There's no dynamic motion or action to any of this. You compare this art here of the action, the page 20 that I am. We did get to page 20. Wow. But you look at this and it's very static. It's very still. There's no dynamic action. There's no motion. You compare this to even the most generic anime. Manger, and there's like motion blurs and these really dynamic angles and perspective shots and all this stuff, whereas this stuff is borderline just profiles, and it's not impressive. It doesn't look very
The
good.
manga also tends to be drawn better too. It's
Yeah,
actually drawn correctly, so that there aren't like big fucking flaws with the anatomy.
yeah. There's supposed to be some punching here, but there's no impact to any of it. It just looks like somebody standing there the whole time. And then, again, we're at the same situation. And it's also very weird where it's like the bad guys always have the gun. It's a very leftist thing that has infiltrated the culture is bad guys use guns. So, of course, all the bad guys in this have guns, and the good guy never uses a gun because that is the weapon of the enemy. Whereas in real life, there's many stories of ordinary people who have had guns to protect themselves from other guys of whatever situation.
That Cape Fags don't want to tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are stories of real life heroes who fucking actually stood up against like some crazy guy. Or the to be honest, the realest kind of hero is a lone person, an actual lone person, not the fake childish superhero for grown up retards that this is made by an actual grown up retard who can't write. And again, if we were reading this, I could probably find a giant continuity flaw somewhere, but I'm not even paying that much attention because there's nothing to pay attention to. It's just the same old going through the motions that was done in the previous comic.
Yeah, I'm literally not paying attention. That is actually the thing is,
but there's nothing to look at.
I wonder if we could play a contest. Let's do a fucking contest where we can see if we can find the glaring continuity flaw as early as possible. And now it's just like, I don't care.
Yeah, it's do I want to really look that close at?
I don't care.
At a comic that was clearly made with no love. There was no love or care or attention put into this comic. That was proven already with our previous reviews of the previous comics. He did not give a shit about making this comic. He just wanted to make an IP.
I mean, let's think about it. It's just a ripoff of Captain America.
Yeah.
Is this really going to be your fucking like if this was the last thing you ever did in your life, would this be your swan song? It's a generic Captain America ripoff.
Yeah, how do you make your character? That's one thing that nobody in Comicsgate was ever smart or brave enough to ask Mike S. Miller is, how is your ripoff of Captain America distinct? And the answer is like, well, he's not a Nazi. It's like, who cares, though? Who gives a shit about that? Captain America already has comics where he's Captain America. What are you doing to really stand out? To make people outside of the cult go, hey, wait a second, this is going to be interesting. And they actually thought it was like, he's going to be like a real hero who fights gangsters and people with guns. And it's like, nobody cares about that anymore, though. That's not interesting. That's not heroic.
It's a leftist viewpoint. He fights people who use guns.
Yeah, exactly. It's extremely sinewy.
It's basically anti-gun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our heroes don't use guns. I don't care.
Okay, so
First off, that's not interesting.
This guy fires a bullet and then just immediately cuts to public library, 10:22 a.m. I guess the next day. They don't fucking say if it is or not, but then there's this guy, and again, the fucking shit isn't distinct enough. Here's Lonestar ripping off the Captain America punching Hitler thing, which is fucking, acting like you're actually... Lonestar's actually the Captain America in this. Now you're wishing that you were just actually fucking making Captain America. And it's like, you're reminding us that you're not. You're reminding us also that even the bad or generic Captain, like there's the whole really overrated Ed Brubaker era of the fucking 2000s of Captain America, and you're showing that you can't even rise to that because Ed Brubaker would at least write a story where the threat would be established, and then the good guy has to fucking face it down. In this, it's just there's a gangster guy on the street, and so he punches him. and
He
that's
has
it.
the ability to fucking essentially just soak bullets.
Yeah, which again
There's no
isn't
risk.
established. It's not established in this, and it wasn't established in the previous one. It was established in a really lazy spin-off thing. But
There's no risk. There's no threat to the fucking character.
here's
He's in
also
no danger.
this is very strange, where it's going into like, World War II. There's this guy, and then like some kind of Iron Cross, I guess, is some kind of super Nazi, which establishing or not establishing, but furthering the lie that the Iron Cross was some kind of Nazi symbol. So when people see the Iron Cross and
Oh,
say
he doesn't know
you're
that?
you're a Nazi, it's furthered on by misleading representations like
I
this.
mean, that's exactly what the left does. That's the exact behavior the left
Yes,
engages in.
yeah,
Is they see anything that looks German and it's like, oh, this is Nazism,
yeah,
just automatically, reflexively. Anything German is Nazi.
it's how like Germans, Nordics, white people are now being vilified by the modern culture, and Mike S. Miller is showing that he's helping to join in. Also, this is very fucking
He
weird.
says he's not.
Where well, he doesn't know, his left hand doesn't know what his right hand is doing, but also here the caption says this is not the World War II that history teaches. So the real World War II was fought by there was no sacrifice made by the average man. It was all these superheroes with capes and they were flying. And it's like, isn't that not the most
Diminishing the
disrespectful way
sacrifice
to treat actual
of
military
the
veterans?
the actual people who fought in that war, their sacrifices being further diminished by these dumb fucking cape fags.
Yes. Cape fags like Mike S. Miller, who take the actual sacrifice of real military veterans and show that they don't give a shit. Guys like Mike S. Miller don't give a shit about military veterans in
Don't
any
profit for
way
that.
because they just care about superheroes. They care more about superheroes. As proven right here, Mike S. Miller and superhero comic fans, by proxy and in practice and all that shit, they show that they really don't give a shit. Even if they say, oh, we support the troops, you really don't. You don't give a shit about the troops
Really
as
don't.
much as you
No
care
one
about
does.
superhero comics. It
It's
keeps shit.
clear as day just from seeing this.
But yeah, he's like, in reality, Hitler taking over most of Europe by we entered the war, might and power of his own superpowered Übermensch, the Iron Cross. And it's like, yeah, so there again, you're just fucking just throw all even the reality of the German soldiers that people just vilify as being all evil Nazis, when in reality it's sort of like that meme of then one day for no reason at all people voted Hitler into power. It ignores and erases the reality of the German people and why any of that happened in Europe and in Germany and fucking even France and all that stuff to a degree, is that it's ignoring a lot of the situations that people were in where their countries actually were being attacked. That even I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware of the Weimar Republic or whatever the fuck, and the reality of that.
So yeah, that's one. That's another thing. Comics you can thank Comicsgate for
Yeah,
is just spreading further, just the same narrative we've heard a million times from all the incorrect public schools.
yeah. The misinformation. This is helping essentially to help spread the misinformation. Also, some guy has a cross on his helmet. That's something that is always very sus, you could say, is the way Christians are always trying to steal credit for everyone else's achievements in history. Christians are acting like, yeah, Christians actually did that when they didn't.
So the cross is okay. The Iron Cross isn't, even though the Iron Cross is basically a Christian symbol.
Yeah, it's a cross. And then there's also this Buddhist symbol. It's the Buddhist swastika, because the Nazi swastika was tilted in a different way, and so it's like, what's going on? What's with that? But again, it's
Brutal,
really
too.
disrespectful to the people who actually died in the war to act like actually these superheroes were fighting it. That's it's so you're bringing such a childish, low IQ element into a real situation. It's massively disrespectful. Basically, you're doing everything you can to dishonor the war dead of the United States and even the rest of the countries, even Germany, who were fighting for their country. In a way, they were fighting for their country more than America was fighting for its own country. Um, but anyways, yeah. So, fucking, oh no, she passes out, and it turns out it's him. And oh no, he's turning into a demon now. I guess I don't fucking know. Um, Again, a lot of the shit not making sense. It's being pretty ridiculous. I guess that was his Spidey sense going off. Uh, and yeah, more Antifa guys showing up. They stabbed a guard and they're gonna rob a bank. But then he comes in. So again, it's the exact same thing. Gang members show up, but he fights them. And he can soak a bullet, so there's really nothing heroic about what he's doing because he could just walk into gunfire. So he doesn't have to be brave or heroic in any way to
He's
even
also not
stop this stuff.
taking any precautions to make sure that people are kept safe either.
Hmm.
Kind of like in the previous one, the big continuity error. He is just straight up fucking exposing a child to gunfire for no reason.
Yeah, in the Monster Hunt. So again, there's all sorts of shit that's just not interesting. Uh, Again, there's no story really being established except, I guess, the big bad vampires controlling Antifa, and this is what page 36. I easily could have had this entire story. I'm not going to even get into the end. In fact, I think this might as well wrap up here. But like I could have had this entire comic finished by now without losing a single shred of any plot element. Going back and saying, oh, this guy, he was actually in World War II, with again not establishing how he's supposed to still be alive, unless he's just immortal now or something, because he's just taking shotgun blast to the stomach, and it's like where are the pellets going? Where are the bullets going? Are they falling back out? Even the fucking the werewolf, or not werewolf, but the Wolverine comics and movies establish that if a bullet is fired into him, it doesn't just disappear and get absorbed into his body. The bullet has to be pushed back out. But this level of writing is not smart enough for that. And if the level of writing isn't even going to be that smart, why bother reading it? So
Why
that you know
bother
what that
making
can be
it? Why
considered a
bother
continuity
making it?
flaw or a plot hole at least. Anyways, so yeah, there's no meat to this story. It's just a bunch of bland stuff. It's not told with any good amount of pacing or or any narrative cohesion because again, there's this whole flashback thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the Antifa or the vampires. It's just a random scene unrelated to any of the other scenes. There's no cohesion at all, and doesn't even explain how that's supposed to be interesting, because he's just Guy. He was superhero first, and also it says for some reason he was forgotten, and it's like really a guy with superpowers was forgotten. You think that would be one of the most remembered parts of a world war is that they actually had fucking super powered people, but now it's just fucking it's again another plot hole. Maybe not a continuity flaw, but a plot hole, a giant one that doesn't make sense. It's sort of like in the new Justice League where it's like a Dark Side went to Earth that had the anti-life equation in it, but then he forgot it was there, so they didn't know where the planet
Well,
was or what it was. And it's like it's the only planet where you lost a fight and you forgot that it was the one where you lost the fight and had the anti-life equation. Doesn't really make any sense. But it goes to show that's the
because it
level of
goes to
writing
show
we're dealing with here.
it's not about fucking making sure that you've written a coherent story or even an interesting or fun story. It's just making it so it's like things happen. Look
Yeah.
at Spider-Man. Spider-Man kicked this guy. It's so dope.
Yeah, what happened to wanting better comics? Where's the better comic? These are worse. These are at least as bad as SJW comics or worse because those comics have editors that are like, okay, you need to have an actual continuity to this that continues and gets to a point. But with indie comics, there's no editor, so there's no standard. There's no standard for storytelling, for coherence, for writing quality. Even with the dumb SJW comics that are from Marvel or DC, they still have the editors trying to be like, okay, you got to fucking have a point to this. You have to have a bad guy, set up a villain,
That should
set
be
up your
the
hero's
ultimate
powers.
total shame forever of Comicsgate is
Yeah.
that they aren't even reaching the standards of SJW Marvel.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing. In fact, that was obvious from Jawbreaker's Lost Souls, is that his Richard built his entire channel criticizing SJW comics that were indeed fucking completely incompetently made. But then he made his own comic that was even worse, on an objective level, not a matter of opinion or even taste, but on a measurable level where the characters didn't have even explained superpowers. Their backstory was never even hinted at or explained. None of the story. It was just a series of visuals that eventually fizzled out at the end. There was no narrative. There was no character. It didn't even have one-dimensional characters. It had no dimensional characters. None of the characters' personalities were distinct from each other. It messed up every single thing that a comic could mess up. And again, that was the beginning of Comicsgate's comics, and every Comicsgate comic since then has been yet another example of people who have no clue what they're doing. This childish attempt at writing and very low IQ ability to construct a story. They have no idea what they're doing. Most of them have never actually written a story before, or they've written like, oh, I wrote a screenplay, and it's like, okay, what is it like? Oh, it sucks. Okay, good job. It's like, I'm going to turn it into a comic now. And but before Comicsgate, there were 1,000 other people who wrote screenplays and had them turned into comics, without even thinking of their screenplay or their story as a comic, how to present it. They wouldn't even rewrite it in some kind of comic format. They would just throw the script at an artist and say, here, turn this into a comic. And it's like, that's really, it's disrespectful to the artist, but it goes to show that you're now creating for a medium you are completely indifferent to. And no matter how much you pretend you're not. So, yeah, as we knew, this comic would suck because it's written by Mike S. Miller, whose last two comics didn't just suck, but they were completely incoherent. Giant, hilarious continuity flaws right from the beginning. This one, again, it's just, it's this whole weird thing of confusing heroism and being a hero with going through the motions. They put a hero in front of bad guy, and bad guy's like, hey, I will be a bad guy. And then hero goes, no, you won't. I will stop you. And that's it. There's no story. There's no motivation. There's no reason why the hero does anything.
These people are supposed to be on the cutting edge.
Yeah, they're not even close to the fucking back. They're not even at the hilt. I could fix this story in fucking like 5 seconds. I could say, okay, the good guy wants to face down fucking villain. Like, the reason why Batman works is because he has that motivation built into his character. His parents were killed by muggers, so he goes after crime. This guy goes after crime just because action, and he's a hero. There's no real reason for it.
I was actually thinking this whole time is like, what if the character was a German from World War One, and so the backstory is that during World War II, he was trying to actually fight the Nazis from inside the country, and then you have him in the present day. I don't know why, but it's like, that's his backstory. Is that like he was a fucking I don't know what you call it, partisan or something, basically working from inside his own country, or maybe he joined the army of another country, the UK or fucking whatever,
That
to
reminds
fight
me of
against the Nazis.
yeah, that reminds me of Operation
It's
Valkyrie.
a new,
even
fresh take that you haven't seen before. Really, nobody's done that.
Yeah, what
Not
like
as far as I know.
if you're going to do it as superheroes, what about some kind of make not the exact thing, but say make your equivalent of a superhero version of like Operation Valkyrie, where they tried to, the Germans, the other Nazis tried to kill Hitler because they saw Hitler as he's driving the country into the ground, where he's fucking he's invading other countries.
You could actually do things like bring up the Weimar Republic and post World War I Germany, the fucking results of like the Paris peace accords and shit like that.
Yeah, and the way that it fucking basically destroyed Germany, but also the innocent people in Germany they became the villains of the entire world, and how that would affect other people.
There's some show on fucking Netflix. It's like Weimar or something like that. And it's basically just like set in like 1922 or 23. It's like crime is out of control. Pedophilia is rampant. This is also where some guy got the idea of starting up a transsexual clinic to promote like
the world's first, apparently,
exchange operations,
to
and
promote
shit.
transsexualism, and that's kind of where it was all started. And people began seeing it as sort of an attack on their values, and some way to subvert and destroy their country from within. And it's really a shame, because that was legit. There was an actual attempt to destroy Germany from within, from people who saw themselves as hating Germans justifiably, and how that could be seen as sort of continuing a vicious cycle of violence and instigating a second world war. A lot of people don't know that, and you could tell by like writing of this level, of this stupid low IQ childish level, is how people think that World War II happened just out of nowhere, or that Hitler got voted into power just because he was popular or populist or something.
Or that he just stole power. A lot of people just think that he just fucking took over the country all of a sudden.
Yeah.
A lot of people are surprised to find out he was elected.
Yeah, there's that old saying that people forget that the first country that the Nazis took over was Germany. And it's like they didn't really take it over. It was, if anything, there was a lot of weird involvement with the Russians and people who sort of took over Russia, did take over Russia by force through a revolution that was sort of artificially instigated. And again, there's a lot of weird history to that. And it's like, if you're going to go after the Nazis, that's been done to death. Why not go after, a threat that killed more people? It's funny. It's at this point, people already knew that the Soviet Russia and the communists in Russia and in China went on to kill millions more than the Holocaust ever did. Why not tell a story about that? There could be some real hero stuff in that. That would be interesting, and it would be unique. But instead, you just want to do the same old shit. And that's never going to make comics. Having no motivation for your characters was never going to make comics better either.
Is it that he fucking has no motivation, or is this really the one thing he always wanted to do in life was a generic fucking boilerplate ripoff of fucking Captain America? The one thing no one has asked for in 80 years.
And had already been done like another 10 times.
Nobody wants Captain America. forget about ripoffs of Captain America. Nobody wants to read a Captain America comic to begin with.
Yeah, that's pretty much been done. You have to have some kind of new take on it. And again, what they did with the movie at least put a new take on Captain America, because it showed Captain America as the guy he was before the fucking before he became the super serum soldier Captain America, and the kind of the implications of that, and the fact that that he's a hero mainly because of they gave him the super chemical and stuff, but the guy he was before was still like a good person, and it's established and sort of talked about, whereas in the comics it wasn't really, not until like so many decades of continuity. But again, a fresh take on that was it was pretty much played out, and in the movie they had a better way to sort of retell that story, because they had done other movies of Captain America and they were boring. They were not interesting. They were boring. They were bland. They told dumb stories. But even the fucking 80s Captain America movie is still better than this, because this doesn't have any consideration. It has no motivation for any of the characters. It's just empty. It's empty and soulless, which is very ironic considering the title. But that's also, the same applied for Jawbreaker's Lost Souls, where there was no soul to any of the characters. They didn't have a distinct personalities from each other, but even then they didn't really even have personalities. They didn't even have a personality to not be distinct either. They were just guys who mostly bickered, and then the story was they got hired to fight bad guys, and that was it.
The really ridiculous part is that they're on the same team. They're on the same side.
Yeah, they're all on the same side, but all they did was argue with each other. They didn't just argue, they bickered like children, and it was really childish and moronic. And that was Jawbreaker's Lost Souls, and then this comes along and it's even dumber. But disgracing the war dead, disgracing World War II veterans is something that Mike S. Miller's just really into, I guess. It's something that he has cried on stream about being taken to task for, which goes to show all these Comicsgate people are beta males, whiny, effeminate cucklets. They're terrible writers, they're terrible comic creators, even the ones who have industry experience. Without exception. There's no exception to anyone.
I mean, the ones with industry experience need to be ejected.
Yeah, they're the worst. It's funny, they're actually the worst. Some of the original creators at least had a little more promise, or some of them, here's the thing, Monster MD came out, was basically generally thought of as kind of disappointing, but that actually had more motivation and distinct characterization and stuff in it. And again, I wasn't even that interested in it, but it still did a comic better than this. So even webcomics do comics better than these industry professionals. The industry professionals are the reason why the industry sucks. The reason why American comics suck, the reason why superhero comics suck, is not just because of the politics, it's because of the creators. It's also because of the fans, of course, but we've gone into that many times in the past. Because the fans encourage this. The fans actually paid money for this, saying that they were rewarding merit, and then they didn't reward merit. They rewarded comics that are bad by people who were completely unproven and had no merit to show. Again, that wraps up Comicsgate. That wraps up Mike S. Miller's career. He's completely, utterly incompetent as a creator.
Comicsgate is officially fucking finished. I don't know if we should even say, is Comicsgate now officially finished? They're done? They're
well, it had been already. In fact, another thing that I thought was funny, somebody pointed out, or Jim Tooner actually pointed out, was that Liam Gray's comic, his next comic, he just did a crowdfunding campaign, sure that he was going to be a big success, and he didn't even get like 10% so far of his fucking of what he got for the last thing. Now it's still going, of course, but he had like $20,000 within the first week for Xenotype. He doesn't even have $5,000 so far. for his new comic, and it probably won't even break 5K or 10K.
Then again, that's what happens when you basically you completely torch your own reputation for money.
Yeah, but also when you have a cult behind you, you get money, and it's like, okay, so if you're willing to, lie and pretend to hold values that in practice you have no actual belief in, yeah, you can sucker a lot of people in. If you're willing to just lie to everyone constantly, if you're not, you will never get as much money as the people who are willing to lie and manipulate the gullible.
He probably thought the cult was bigger than it actually was.
Yeah, there's that. But the thing is, they also hate him now. He's Ethan Van Sciver, the leader of Comicsgate, who's not honest enough to admit that Comicsgate has a leader, has told everyone, don't donate to
we also helped
Liam Gray. That was the thing, is that we did that to him because we basically got Ethan to be legally liable in a blackmail plot, and I think we'll do a video about that soon too. That's old news, though. That's been publicly known, is that Ethan Van Sciver is.
We deserve probably the majority of the credit for doing all that.
Yeah, we did that to Liam had no idea that we basically ended his whole. We just ended this man's whole career. But the thing is, he'll still get a little money. He'll get enough money that he can make the comic and probably even have it shipped. But it's not going to be, nearly. It won't even be as much of a disaster as Xenotype turned out to be. So again, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of reasons, though, why you look out for fucking Papa SWC. Don't fuck with Daddy. And again, it goes to show this is what happens when we criticize comics. We end up accidentally destroying people's entire careers. We did that with even with not just Liam, but also we turned it around. It's some people refer to it as meme magic, but for us, it was a Tuesday. We've done that for a lot of other people in Comicsgate. In a way, we did it also to Richard and Ethan and so on. But also, like Mike S. Miller, also kicked out of Comicsgate entirely, decided to be an enemy of Comicsgate. It was just decided for him. And also, by the way, Ethan, I know Ethan didn't say, don't buy Liam Gray's comics. He fucking burned his comics and said that they're terrible. You don't have to say don't buy his comics if you denigrate the comics and, just go around trashing them, saying they're terrible. A lot of people, do that whole semantics thing. Where he didn't actually say it. People are so dishonest that they fucking, that they are, they're constantly resorting to, either semantics or some kind of cultural, what was it called? Mendacity. The whole cultural mendacity thing where they they don't ever just come out and be honest about the intent. They just focus on the exact words. A lot of people do that, and again, that's something that a coward does, and inherently, like a beta male, effeminate person, a soy boy as they're called. Anyways, yeah, that wraps up. Talking about the comic wasn't even worth it because we knew this comic was going to be complete dog shit. We just wanted to see if we could find continuity flaws. We found plot holes, which counts to me. But we could probably find continuity flaws if we kept going.
Plot holes don't even normally matter to me, but in this case, it's just... he's clearly not even reading his own comic.
Well, if it's a plot hole that is like, oh, this wasn't explained because a lot of other shit is going on, and it's like, oh, there's not a good place to grind everything to a screeching halt to explain this one detail, or how awkward it would be to shoehorn an explanation of this thing. But there is nothing else happening in this comic to even grind to a screeching. The comic ground itself to a screeching halt just for a flashback of, World War II era had superheroes, so these people's sacrifices didn't really mean as much. That kind of shit. It's like, that has nothing to do with vampires brainwashing Antifa or any of that shit, which is equally as childish and low IQ, for storytelling and from a writer. But the plot holes in this easily could have been explained anywhere at all, especially if you can stop and start fucking going into it, like go to the library and explain this flashback of how this guy was actually in World War II. But it still doesn't even explain how, he's still alive or fucking what, where he got his powers. That's basically a plot hole. If you go back into World War II, and it's like, here he is. And it's like, okay, how did he get his powers? Well, we're not going to tell that part. It's like, so you're missing out the most important part of telling your story. So that's more important than even reading or reviewing this comic, is look at all the things, all the rudimentary mistakes that, like they say that there's, 5 things your story needs to actually be a story. And this comic most likely is missing every single one of them. But it's missing at least one that disqualifies this from being a story. And again, there are many ways we easily, without even barely thinking about it, we could fix this story. Either by telling better stories or, like this one, explain why he's fighting fucking street thugs. There has to be some actual justification aside from, oh, they are a bad guy. He has to have a reason to constantly be looking out and finding, people who are committing crimes so he can go jump at the... Just giving him magic powers that he detects when a crime is happening is really stupid. Even RoboCop had a better explanation for that. He was a police officer, so his point was to... But the thing is, he also wasn't making that choice constantly. RoboCop was doing what his programming was telling him to do, which is interesting, and then also goes into like what happens when he gets his humanity back and can make choices for himself again. But also to that extent, how much of him is still human, if it's like just a brain, basically.
That's the thing, is he was both more heroic and more cool than any of these fucking
But
characters.
look at how much more we're thinking about this than clearly the writer, fucking Mike S. Miller, thought about his own character. He didn't even think about why his own character does anything. He didn't come up with a reason. So, that's it. That's all we need to do. You don't need to read the whole comic, as we've just proven. All you need to do is find the reason why there is no comic, why there's no story, why there's no explanation. Because we read all of the first comic, and then we read a bunch of Monster Hunt, and it's like, when you find the same flaws over and over again, a comic has lost its right to even be read. It is up to the person making the comic. It's up to the comic. It's up to the story itself to tell you why you need to read it. And instead, when you give people reasons to not read it, which I know people who back this comic, they didn't really read it either. But even people who are like, oh, this comic was great, they didn't read it either. They pretended that they did. They may have looked at the visuals and skimmed through the pages, but they didn't actually read the comic. They just simply looked at it, which is all comic book fans do. Comic book fans are not actually capable of reading. Most of them, you could say, are technically illiterate, especially people like Richard C. Myers, technically illiterate. Ethan Van Sciver, technically illiterate. Richard C. Meyer may be literally illiterate, too, in fact. But the people who support comics like this don't actually like comics. They don't read. They're not capable of reading. They're not smart enough. It's because they are stupid. It's not a technical issue, even. It's because they're stupid. They're low IQ. And they're effeminate by nature. Beta, soy, male, cucklets. Partially glow in the dark, slight. There may be an element of glowing to them, too. Anyway, so...
that just makes them easier to detect.
Anyways, we're obtuse men, so let us be oblique. Share our videos and give us money on Subscribestar. As we continue to make and shape history, you can do your part by spreading the word that Shitty Webcomics is back at it, creating the opinions that everyone else will be saying next year, as already proven years ago. It's happened already. This is not our opinion It's not us like even gloating or saying anything. It's already been like other people have come to us and been like, wow, that stuff that you guys were saying a year or two ago, now everyone else is saying it. It's weird to see you guys do all of that first.
Years ahead.
Yes. We're not monsters. We're just ahead of the curve. So yeah, you can support us on Subscribestar, and you also get to watch our quantifiably zeitgeist-altering secret unlisted videos that have already changed your life, even if you're not aware of it yet. Also, you can go to our Curious Cat to recommend a webcomic for us to cover, or send us questions or whatever. Until then, as your masters say to each other behind your backs, should have listened to Shitty Webcomics.